When I thought about this year's stewardship campaign, two things came to mind that I would want to share. One is your treasurer, and one is just a fellow parishioner. The first is, no surprise, that giving through the stewardship campaign matters a lot to Epiphany and is good for Epiphany. The second is, and maybe this will be true, it also might matter for our soul. To the first. Some of you were able to participate this last summer in discussions with Nathan and Kelly Martin around Epiphany and some of the things that we do well and some of the things that we could improve on. If you did, you heard in those discussions that we are unique. We are uniquely positioned in the city of Seattle to do God's work in a world right now, frankly, really needs us. We need God's grace in the midst of a world, a city that is challenged. And sometimes to help us do that, we need some help. And Epiphany can help in that way, at least in my mind, in a couple of ways. First, it's a place we can gather. We can come together to worship. We can come together to spend time together. Second, it's a place where we can come to be equipped. And when I say come, sometimes that's over video, sometimes that's in person, but we can be together to be equipped to go do the good work that God has called us to do. The third thing, and this may require in person, it's a place to be cared for. Epiphany is a place to be cared for as we embark on and continue on this journey of doing God's work in the city of Seattle. And sometimes those things take money. So for example, we have to pay the heating bills in the middle of winter to gather in the Great Hall and be together in a spot that's warm. For example, when the Sunday school classes are coming together, they need supplies. Kids love stuff, and we need to have supplies to make that experience the kind that we want our children to have at Epiphany. And then finally, and of course one of my favorites, we need to invest in things like the choir to provide things like Evensong. And by the way, if you haven't had a chance to join Evensong lately, please do. It's a great experience and really, really worth participating in, and good for your soul. Speaking of which, when I thought about this, as I mentioned, I also thought that perhaps participating in the campaign could also be good for our souls. I will be the first to admit, and those of you who know me know this, when I spend time in Scripture, it's not as deep as I'd like it to be. And what I do know, though, is that Scripture spends a lot of time talking about money. Jesus himself did. So I wouldn't claim to know exactly what all that means. In fact, more often than not, I come away a little more confused about the role that money plays in our walk and in our personal spiritual journeys. But what I do know, because in fact, one of the spiritual disciplines is this notion of giving of ourselves and in some cases of our money, that somehow, and maybe paradoxically, participating in giving, in this case, our stewardship campaign, can be good for our souls. So if you think about what you want to do this year and pray about it in the stewardship campaign, I would encourage you to remember what you do will be good for and matters to Epiphany, to the church, and also might be good for and matters to us on our individual spiritual journeys.